Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 25 degrees of Gemini, which will be exact on June 16th at 10:05 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, or 7:05 a.m. Pacific time, which is also LA time. Now, the new moon is always the beginning of a new moon cycle, and it's time for planting some seeds for this lunar cycle. So this is also the time to set our intentions for the next 28 days. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that towards the end of the video. There's also going to be a drawing this month in which you can win a whole life reading. And I'll talk more about the details of that also at the end of this video. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the new moon in Gemini. What is Gemini all about? It's an energy where we want to connect with others, where we want to share our little hearts out. And it's a very busy energy. It's focused on communication and collecting information and sharing. And it's really about looking at our mental programming and our conditioned mind to see what is something that's useful to us still from how we've been conditioned, and what is some of the things that we maybe want to let go of, and maybe new ways of thinking or new thinking structures that we want to create. Because the creative process very much has to do with our thinking. That's the seed of everything, right? The thought is always the first thing. First was the thought, and then there was the deed, right? So it's about thinking, and the thinking will evoke a feeling, and then the feeling will evoke us to take action or not to take action. And so that's how the creative process works. It always starts with the thought. And so the thought is very important. It's a very important component in how we're creating our lives. Now, Gemini is asking us to always stay in movement and to always think about what we need to know in order to move forward, in order to share ourselves, in order to connect, in order to create something, right? And here are some questions that you can ask yourself with this new moon energy, okay? So first of all, you can ask yourself, okay, what's my inner dialogue? Like, how is my thinking working? What are some of the things that I think about on a more regular basis? Something that it has like repetition or repetitive sense to it, right? So to pay attention to that, right? And then what thoughts and mental processes am I attached to that are just no longer serving my development? So just take a look to see what keeps showing up for you in your thinking processes that is just maybe not quite serving you any longer. Now, the spiritual goal of Gemini is the development of perception, thought, and communication. And new connections are always created in the brain every time we have a thought or we think about something from the past. So like a memory, for example, right? So the more we have one particular reoccurring thought or reoccurring memory that shows up, that's when that pathway gets deepened in our brain, and that's when we're more likely to create something out of that thought process or out of that thought pattern, okay? Now Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, is direct again. It was retrograde for 3 weeks prior to the new moon. And so now that it's direct, it's really helping us implement all the realizations that we've had over the past 3 weeks during the Mercury retrograde phase. Whether that was a realization about ourselves, about our environment, about our habits, about our thought patterns, things that maybe are no longer working the way they need to be working. Anything like that can be implemented now and can be now really, we can move forward with these things. Now, Mercury is in 5 degrees of Gemini at the time of the new moon, so it is still making a square to Neptune in Pisces, just like it was during the time of the full moon 2 weeks ago. And so this is really, again, still asking us to stretch and grow and make our necessary adjustments that we need to make in connection to our thinking patterns and to the way we communicate. Now, bringing a good dose of compassion to ourselves and to everyone around us is really going to help with this process. We want to avoid judging and being harsh with ourselves, because that's not really going to serve us. So what we really want to consider here is, with each thought that we have, if each thought is sort of the seed of something, then each thought is sort of creating a wave. It's creating a vibration that we're putting out there into the universe, and we're putting out there in our environment. And people will be able to receive and pick up on that vibration if they're tuned into their intuition. If they're not tuned into their intuition, they will still pick up on it. They will just pick up on it on a more unconscious level, not quite knowing why they have picked up on that, right? But nevertheless, there's sort of like a transmitting that takes place with our thinking all the time. So that's something really to consider. So a question you can ask yourself with this is like, what if I knew that every thought that I'm thinking is transmitting to somebody around me? So how would I then look at my own thinking? Would I make modifications, or would I maybe be more careful in terms of like what I'm putting out? Would I pay more attention? Would I be more conscious? And I think that the consciousness is really, the awareness is really a key component to this. Like just being conscious and aware of the kind of thoughts that we're having, instead of just being on autopilot all the time and not paying attention to what pops up and what arises in our awareness, right? That can be really powerful. Now, the second thing that we want to do when we become conscious, when we pay more attention, we're more aware of what our thinking is, we want to bring a really good dose of compassion to ourselves and to the process, because consciousness and compassion is what creates a shift. The moment we're not combining this with compassion, if we're combining it with judgment or criticism, we're not going to be able to create a shift, and we're just going to spin and be in a loop with ourselves about it, and it will just feel like we're stuck all over again, right? So consciousness and compassion, very important. They have to move together in order for us to create a shift. All right. The other thing that I want to mention with this new moon is that Mars will be in alignment with this new moon in Gemini. And so this really shows our readiness for a new image and a new expression of our inner warrior, of that masculine energy that we all carry with us. That energy that wants to achieve, that wants to do things, that wants to be in action, wants to move forward, right? Now, we need to examine how this warrior energy is serving us on an internal level and in the outside world. And how are we using this warrior energy, right? So we really need to consider what could be possible if the masculine side for both men and women, because this is not gender specific, this is something we all carry within us. So if this masculine energy could mature into a more spiritual warrior, where we're being of service, where we're focusing on our inner journey and dedicating this energy to self-mastery through either overcoming some ignorance or overcoming a fear or overcoming a certain amount of illusion that we have with ourselves or our lives. So if we can really focus that in that way, then the masculine energy or the warrior energy becomes of service to the collective and to the world, in a sense. And I always say to my students, Mars is one of those energies that's sort of like, it is a personal planet because we feel very connected to it, but it's also kind of a social planet. It's sort of like in between. It could be interpreted as both, because that Mars energy does affect the collective in a big way. Right? So it is not just a personal energy. Now, Chiron, which is the wounded healer, squares Mars and the new moon at the time of this lunation. So this really is sort of like a reminder that we really need to heal the wounds of the past in connection to the masculine energies. So both genders really need to take a good look at the damaging actions and attitudes held in the past, that have been held in the past. So men, for example, have had to shut down their hearts and deny their sensitivities, right? A lot of the time. Women have either given up their power and become submissive, or they have cloned themselves to be like men, where they have also shut down their hearts and denied their sensitivities as well, so they can live in that man's world, right? So, and this is really important to take a look at, like, what is that for you? Because when we deal with issues that we have in our lives, from a place of anger rather than from a place of love and an open heart, we're not serving ourselves and we're not serving the collective. And so we're really needing to take a look at that, because we're at a turning point right now where we're really realizing more and more that humanity's evolution and also the survival of humanity really requires actions and attitudes that come more from an open heart and from the willingness to make and allow mistakes. There's so much in this world that we've grown up in that is always about go, 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 do, and it has to be all good and it has to be all perfect, and you can't make mistakes, and it's all about like going to the top and accomplishing things, and it doesn't matter what happens to other people as long as I'm climbing up the ladder. And so this sense of Mars, which is a part of that Mars energy, it's that competition, it's that needing to be first and needing to be upfront, right? But that is just part of it. We can also put that Mars energy in service to the collective, and then it's not so much anymore just me personally being upfront and me winning the game. Then it becomes more about how can we make it a win for everybody, and how can we connect to all people so that we can all move forward, right? So it becomes then more of a collective connection. Now, as we heal ourselves, as we start to heal ourselves, we also, of course, start to heal the collective in turn, because it's all interconnected with each other, right? And so as we embrace our inner tyrant or our inner victim, right, we really start to recover our heart energy. We start to recover our birthright to be whole, perfect, and complete. And that's our birthright. That's everybody's birthright. And that's what I believe is sort of the purpose of our journey as human beings, is to come back to that birthright of being whole, perfect, and complete, just like we are as babies when we're born, right? I mean, you wouldn't look at the baby and go, oh, there's something wrong with that baby, because babies, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just always perfect, And I think that's our birthright, even when we're grown up, even when we're adults, we need to come back to that, but we can only come back to that through the heart energy, through the heart center. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is that Saturn re-entered Scorpio on June 14th and is going to be in Scorpio for another 3 months until September. And it's now in 29 degrees of Scorpio as at the time of this lunation. So this really gives us an opportunity to recognize and confront the remaining fears and unconscious patterns that have been holding us back. So things that you can take a look at, for example, is, what have you learned about yourself from October 2012 until December 2014 when when Saturn was in Scorpio, right? During that time. And then it moved into Sagittarius for a while, and now it's moving back into Scorpio for 3 months. So what needed your attention during that time, right? And what fears or habits did you release? And is there anything that is still remaining to be looked at? Anything that needs to be released still from those fears or habits that you've learned about during that time, October 2012 until December 2014? Okay, and how is that going to be impacting who you are in the world, how you want to show up in the world, right? Now, the new moon also is making a beautiful trine to the North Node in Libra, and this brings a lovely flow into our social interactions with other people and also in our one-on-one interactions with other people. It makes it easier for us to move forward in our soul's journey on an individual level and also on a collective level, because we're feeling more support, we're feeling more heard, and we're also able to create more of a collaboration with other people and really a fair exchange with other people through that connection. So to sum it all up for this new moon is a huge opportunity to go beyond what we've done in the past and experiment with new ways of thinking about our mind and the purpose of the mind and what the mind does for us, how it serves, how it doesn't, how we want to use it going forward. And so there are a couple of more questions that I have for you, because I always love to pose questions because I think they engage the mind in a new way. And we can also very often just sitting with questions can be very powerful, because it's not about necessarily finding the answers to the questions, but to kind of feel into the questions, right, on a more intuitive level. And so some of the questions you can ask yourself as well is, how do I want to use this very powerful tool called the mind, or my mind, going forward, moving forward, right? How can I loosen my identification with the mind, right? And what you can ask yourself in that relationship is, am I my mind, or am I more than that? Because if you're more than that, then identification with the mind loosens a little bit, right? Then the other thing you can ask yourself is, am I the thinker, or am I simply aware of thinking happening? And again, you don't have to answer these questions. Just sit with these questions while you meditate, or as you go through your day, as you go through this month, this lunar month, and just allow that to be in the background so that it can resonate with your discoveries that you have as you move through this month, right? Now, if you have any personal planets or personal point, like the ascendant or the career point, in 23 to 27 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, this new moon is definitely going to be felt much stronger for you. If you don't have any personal planets or points in those degrees and signs, then you want to take a look at the house placement in which the new moon is taking place in your birth chart, because that is equally as important. So that area of your life will tell you how you can use the new moon energies for these next 28 days. Now, if all of that just sounded like Chinese, feel free to go to my website or to my YouTube channel and watch How to Read Your Birth Chart. That's a video that I've created so that you can understand a little bit better how to use what I talk about in my videos and my weekly blogs, directly use it on your birth chart and see how that relates to your birth chart. Okay? And if you can't find it on my website or on YouTube, then feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. That's info@astrologercoach.com. And my assistant will email you a high-res recording of the class, plus the handouts that come with the class. If you also want to be added to my newsletter as well as receiving the recording, then just write recording and newsletter in the subject line. Okay, if you just want the recording, just write recording. If you want the recording and the newsletter, write recording and newsletter in the subject line to info@astrologercoach.com. Okay, now as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, I have a drawing that I'm going to be doing where you can win a whole life reading from me. And the way you can win this whole life reading is by sharing your little heart out this whole month. Basically, between now and July 4th, if you share on my Facebook fan page, if you share about any kind of discoveries that you've had about your thinking patterns, about your conditioning, about how you share, any healing that has been going on for you in regards to that, anything that's been going on in terms of your masculine and feminine energies that you've been discovering or healing, anything connected to fears or habits that have been coming up in connection to that Saturn energy, anything that you want to share about basically what we talked about in this new moon video that you are discovering about yourself, you know, something that's been showing up for you, share on my Facebook fan page, and I will put everyone who shares will go onto a spreadsheet on my computer, and then after July 4th, I will do a drawing, and one person out of all those shares will win a whole life reading with me. Sounds good? All right, if you have any questions about that, then feel free to reach out. But we also want to talk about setting powerful intentions and the best time to set those intentions, and the moment is now to do that. So let me talk a little bit about powerful intentions. So intentions is something you want to set right after the new moon becomes exact. but not during a moon void, of course. Okay, that's very important. You want to avoid moon void, of course, phases. And the intentions are really just planting a seed for this lunar cycle. So you want to always align your intentions with the new moon energy that we talk about in the video. But you also want to sort of like go within after the new moon has become exact and kind of like check in with yourself. What is intuitively showing up for you? What are you sensing in terms of like the seeds that you want to be planting for this month? So it's not about taking actions. It's really just about planting a seed. And those are your intentions that you're sort of like directing your month after. And then a couple of days after the new moon, I will also post on my weekly forecast and also on the Facebook fan page when it is time to start setting intentions, when it is time to start taking actions on your intentions for this month. Okay, but that's not right after the new moon. That's a couple of days afterwards. Okay. Now, the best and most potent time to set intention for this new moon is 6:51 p.m. on June 16th until 10:05 a.m. on June 18th. And this is both New York time. So if you live in a different time zone, then feel free to join me on Twitter or on my Facebook fan page. I will be posting when it's the perfect time to set your intentions. And so when you read that on my Facebook fan page or on Twitter, you just know, okay, it is now. So no matter what time zone you're in, you know, okay, now I can set intentions. You just write them down, okay? You just go within and you write them down, okay? I always recommend meditating. That's a really great way to really get connected to your intentions for the lunar cycle, okay? But also asking those questions that I ask throughout the video. If you want to write down those questions and just ask them as you're tuning in with yourself for the intentions, that's a great way to do it too, okay? Now, if you watch this video after the above mentioned dates or times, you can still set intentions, but you want to make sure that the moon is not void, of course. And I would recommend doing it either before the full moon or before the first quarter moon, if possible. You can find the moon void, of course, phases on my website on the weekly forecast for the whole week. So you can take a look when that is so you can avoid those. And you can go to my website at AstrologerCoach.com and go to the tab that says Astrology Forecast for 2015. And if you click on that, you'll see my weekly forecasts there. You can also subscribe to those via FeedBurner on my website on the Astrology Forecast for 2015 page. On the left side of that page, there's a little window that's connected that says subscribe. And then you put your email address in there and you need to confirm your email address with FeedBurner. You will receive an email from them. So check your junk mail if it doesn't go into the inbox. And confirm your email address, and then you will get your weekly forecasts from me. All right? Now, if you have any general questions about this particular new moon or about anything general about astrology, then feel free to reach out to Sonja at AstrologerCoach.com. That's SONJA at AstrologerCoach.com. If it requires of me to pull up your birth chart, your natal chart, I will ask you to book a reading with me, just because I want to honor my time and I also want to make sure that I can fully answer your question. And so I will ask you to go to my website to the services page and just check to see there's a ton of readings available to see what's the best fit for you. Anything between 25-minute readings to 2-hour readings are available. And book a reading there so that I can answer all your questions. All right? Have a fantastic new moon. Connect to the Gemini energy in terms of sharing and thinking and planting seeds in terms of the creative process. And have a good one. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.